Hello everyone and welcome to the Career Boost and Job Search in Finland. I'm Karen from International House Tampere and it's a pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Nick Cotton. Today he will bring insights and tips in creating and implementing support services for international job seekers. Warm welcome to you, Nick.
Thanks, Karen, and hello everyone. So as mentioned, I'm Nick Cotton, Talent Advisor at International House Tampere. It's great to see you all here today in this session as part of the Finland TalentMatch event. I'm going to present to you today on job search tips to help you succeed in the Finnish job market. I've also got my colleague here, Francesco Durante, so he's online to answer your questions in the chat. So please make use of that opportunity. Just to mention, Tampere is a city in southern Finland, and International House Tampere, we're all about supporting internationals with living, working, studying and connecting with local employers in the region. So with that, I will start to share the slides with you. So our journey today is going to take us through identification of skills, creating your professional profile or CV, pitching to recruiters, creating your application letter, and then searching channels, networking and interview tips. So let's get started with identification of skills. So you may be thinking, well, I know what my skills are. Why would I want to do this? So I would suggest this is the first step in planning your job search and maybe your career direction. So the first step is to review your work and study history and maybe even leisure activities as uncritically as possible so that those hidden, informal and maybe even transferable skills are revealed. Let's go a bit further. So skills related to professional and technical areas can easily be listed in a job application, but particularly in Finland, employers also value those softer, those more general skills. So skills such as teamwork, communication and interpersonal skills are really important. At the end of the day, the recruiter is profiling you. They want to know what kind of person you are professionally and personally. They want to know if you're a good fit for the company, for the team you're going to work in, and perhaps for the values of the business that you're going to be working with. You can also say that professional skills, technical know-how, that may become outdated, but your softer skills, your personality, that doesn't change. So it's really important to capture those in your job search materials. So some more examples here. So softer skills, effective communicator, might be to do with fast learning. Professional and technical skills are just as important. And transferable skills, at least I've found, self-knowledge creates self-worth. It's a nice thing to do to list all of the skills you have. And this is, as said, the first step in building your employment search and the related tools. So think of it as your skills bank, your skills portfolio, and you're going to pull these skills into each application you're making as applicable. How can you do this? So here is a very simple method to identify your own list of skills. So you can think about responsibilities, knowledge needed to do a job, successes, what you developed, what new skills, what you liked doing, and then of course your professional personality. And here is an example. So this was me when I was job searching back in 2018, and I was in quality management. So some highlights from this perhaps. So in knowledge, I'm just going to make a pointer, bear with me a second. So we've got sprint and scrum management. And if you're in IT and tech, you may have that sort of experience. You may also have experience around tools such as process management, QA, and so on and so forth. So when I did this exercise, not only did it enable me to have a very clear list of my skills, it enabled me to identify skills which widened my career path. So with some of these skills I listed here, such as planning, facilitation, team leadership, I then went for project management type of jobs and started applying for those, which created a much wider range of opportunities in that current job market. What did I like doing? I love doing process improvement. I still use those tools today, even in my current role. And then these soft skills that I mentioned. It can be difficult to be objective with these sorts of things, so I would recommend sparring with a network colleague, a friend, and so on. But this is a simple way to take that first step in building your skills bank or portfolio. So having done that, we can then think about moving on to pushing those skills into our job applications. So with that, we can start to look at creating our professional profile or CV. So what we're looking at here is an example of a simple graphic CV. It's for our friend Matty Smith. And we're going to see how he has defined his CV and how we could perhaps improve on that. It's a simple reverse chronological CV. So that means the most recent work history is at the top. And I'm recommending to you 2 pages maximum. Ideally 1 page. And how can we do that? It's really worth thinking carefully what the job ad is asking for, both in your CV and, as we'll see later, in the cover letter. These are very important. So there's probably a lot, I'd like to tell the recruiter, you might as well, in terms of your skills and your achievement, but we need to make sure it's relevant to what the job requires, and thereby we can reduce the content. Photos and references. So, yep, photos are a thing in Finland, unless it's asked not to provide one. That's pretty rare. So a nice professional profile picture is a good thing to add to your CV. And then references. So recommenders, Matty's got a couple of these, and these are good to put in advance on your CV. So don't wait to be asked to add these. Or to provide these as part of your application, put them on the CV. Make sure that your recommender is always available, perhaps if you're outside of Finland, that they're, if you like, on standby. And the more responsibility your recommender or reference has, the better it's going to look for you. So don't wait to be asked, as I said. Profile, so a clear description of your personality, skills, and so on. So here we can see there's a profile, but it's not terribly clear. It's what he's looking for in this case. And there are some skills around here somewhere, but they're not very easy to see. So if I'm the recruiter and I've got 200 CVs to look through, there are 2 things I'm looking at on the first pass, the profile and the skills related to the job that's being advertised, related to the role. If I can't find those, then I'm going to move on to the next CV. So the recruiter just does not have time to guess or do detective work to find out if you're the right person for that job. It needs to stand out very clearly. List the most relevant skills for the role. So we've talked about creating our portfolio, so pull those in as relevant. And then in the work experience, it's good to put an achievement in the role. So it's okay to have 3, 4 bullets about the activities that you did, but put an achievement. I saved, I created, and so on and so forth. Helps you stand out. Education, mention the country of origin, and don't forget professional training as well. Doesn't matter if you haven't got the certificate on the wall. If you've done a training course in leadership, teamwork, then add that. Remember to put permits and licenses, perhaps if you're working in construction, health and safety, or healthcare, and so on. So here are some of the things we could improve here. So we can improve on the profile, make it stand out more, tell more about the applicant, show education and training, and it's better to put the skills near to the top of our CV. We can look at an example of this. So now here is an improved version of the CV. So as you can see, there's an impact statement now in this example of work history. So achieved significant cost savings. A title's been added. Don't have to guess if Matty is a project management professional. It says he is. Okay, I'll read on. The skills are now much more visible and I recommend bulleted. And the personal profile really hits the sweet spot, you know. So I'm a project management professional with experience in manufacturing, supply chain, software development, and then those soft skills. Remember I mentioned those? Really important. And also training has been added as well. I'll mention at this point that at the end of the presentation today, you can download a PDF of some of the content here. So don't worry, you'll get this as a template that you might like to reuse. Okay, I talked about pitching to recruiters, and that's what this slide is all about. So this is a so-called calling card. So if you're applying for that job in Finland and you see in the job ad that you can call Juha on Thursday afternoons between 2 and 4 p.m. to ask a question, don't think, oh, I don't really want to disturb you. You do. You want to exploit that opportunity. You want to make the most of it. How to do that? So first of all, you've got to have a reason for calling. So think of the question that you're going to ask the recruiter and make sure it's not covered in the job ad. If it is, then it's going to be a very short discussion. So you have your question ready, you make the call, have that conversation with the recruiter around the question. Then you can say, can I just take 2 or 3 minutes to tell you more about me as a professional marketing person in this case? The recruiter's always going to say yes. And now you have your calling card. So you can make your pitch. You can simply read it to them. So who you are professionally, what your key skills, your strengths and achievements are. It's a really nice sales pitch. If I'm not using this, I'll probably forget something, make something up, and so on and so forth. So this makes it much easier. It's also less of a CV in that it doesn't have your work history on. So for example, you can use this at networking events, or if you're at a recruitment event. It's a really nice way to demonstrate what you have to offer very, very clearly. And it's much easier for the person you're talking with to understand who you are professionally. You know, if I'm at a recruiting event and I give the person on the other side of the table my CV, they're not going to be able to take all that in, but this, they just might. So again, this will be a template that we're offering, and you may wish to use this in your tool set for networking. And I think that's the first time I've mentioned networking, not the last. So networking is really, really important in Finland. It's probably someone you know who knows someone else who's going to help you get that job. If you're living in Finland, then any opportunity to create face-to-face networking opportunities is great. If you're outside, then well worth cultivating your digital network online, increasing the contacts you have, being active and so on in your profile. And I'm of course talking about LinkedIn, it being pretty much the de facto professional networking tool in Finland. So let's move on to creating an application or cover letter. So this is an opportunity to describe how you fulfill the requirements defined in a job ad. No surprise there, I guess. What we need to be careful to address is that we describe our motivation in relation to the role and the company that we're applying for, as well as what we've got to offer. Read the job ad carefully. Sounds like common sense, but very often a cover letter is, again, something I mentioned earlier. It's what you think you would like to tell the recruiter rather than what they're asking to hear. So it's really good to use the language of the job ad and address the requirements of the job ad very carefully. We'll look at an example of that in a minute. So describe how you can add value using your successes related to the position you're applying for. Use your identified personal and technical skills. Remember, we started with that, our skills portfolio as relevant for a particular job. Something I mentioned here is, again, try not to overload your application, the CV and the cover letter with skills. That can have an effect whereby the recruiter is wondering, who is this person professionally? So make it very focused in terms of the skills related to the role. And we can use this what, how, and who approach to writing our cover letter. So we describe what our motivation is for the job and the company, how you can make a difference in the role, and who you are using your skills and strengths. So let's take a look at an example of that. So this is an example of a role description, a job ad, if you like. It's for a global IT systems provider for the healthcare industry. The role is take the lead in projects to improve usage and reporting of data, have a role in creating data strategy with stakeholders, translate business requirements into easy to use reports, and of course, the always fun, what do we expect from you? Well, obviously experience working in IT, strong analytical and project management skills, some tools listed there, and good communication skills. So here's an example of a cover letter. I know it looks a bit busy, don't worry. What we're going to start doing is looking at how the applicant here has matched the cover letter to the role. So here, the letter says that the cover letter says that I've successfully devised data handling and reporting strategies. And if we look at the job ad, yep, it's a match with the requirements. And then again here, use effective analysis and reporting of data. And again, yep, that's a match. Worked with strategies, and again, that's mentioned in the job ad. And requirements are mentioned, and yep, that's within the job ad. And then if we look at the skills, there's a match here. It would be better if there were more, but this is simply an example. So the point being here that what the applicant has done is use the language of the job ad and translated that into their achievements and their skills. This is really important. So remember, I talked about the what, how, and the who. So the what here is covered with improvement of healthcare products. So that's the motivation of the applicant here. The how, we've just looked at that. So how can you make a difference using the language of the job ad? And the who you are. And this is simply an example of a cover letter template. So there could be a lot more content here. But again, you may wish to use this as a template for your application. Okay, so I mentioned networking earlier on and the importance of this. And in fact, a survey undertaken by none other than Tampere University a few years back showed that more than 70% of job seekers have found their job other than by responding to an open job ad. And in Finland, at least, we refer to this as so-called hidden jobs. So it's someone you know that knows someone else. So how do you find the hidden jobs? Because they're hidden. Well, you can find out about companies, follow their social media, see what they're about. And as I said, contribute to your network, create trust and stronger links, and maybe connections with the company you're applying for. We had a discussion internally on this recently. Should you focus on HR for your connections? I would suggest not. They're always going to use the recruitment processes just as they are, but you may gain traction and an advantage by connecting with people at other levels, different levels of the company. Join networking groups in your field of events interest and find out about events, particularly if you're here in Finland. And we've got some links for you on that later. And open applications might seem like a terribly long shot, but we know at International House Tampere that many of the local companies use open applications as a resource recruitment pool. So here you express your interest and motivation towards a company, because there isn't a job, it's an open application. Do follow our LinkedIn channel for highlights, so you can see lots of networking opportunities there. Also, voluntary work creates connections. Again, this is if you are here in Finland. So it's a great way to meet people and get known. And I mentioned already, so do get references and do get LinkedIn recommendations from any work experience you have. Once again, the recruiter is profiling you, and if they can go to your LinkedIn profile and see that you've got a nice recommendation from a previous work colleague or manager, it really boosts your chances. So that's a bit about networking. Now I'm going to talk about searching channels. So at the top here, we've got a couple of useful links. One is Ecosystems and Networks by a local organization, Business Tampere. So you can follow news, events, and see what's up in business and industry across the Tampere region. And the second is a tech company search. So you can search software and IT companies in Finland by region. Then there are a number of job search portals. So for example, Work in Finland, Durante, and English jobs. You can search jobs in English language. LinkedIn I already mentioned as a really important job search and networking tool. And as already mentioned, so do follow us on LinkedIn and other social media to see what events are happening. And we also promote highlights as job opportunities there. So now I'm going to talk a bit about interview tips and preparation for those. So in advance of the interview, it's good to study a company's situation, products, industry values, and story. It's almost like you want to know more, need to know more than the person that's going to be interviewing you. Why would this be? Let's come to that. Take necessary work certificates and any other materials. It can really help. So the interviewer is going to ask, do you have any questions? So this is why it's good to study the company's situation. It's a good opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge of the industry and the company's situation. So the interviewer has been talking to you for 10 or 15 minutes, but you know just as much as they do. So you know that they haven't mentioned something, and that's your question. It makes you look interested and knowledgeable. Ensure your question is not covered in the job ad, of course. And then you can ask something about the team, company, culture, atmosphere. What does my typical workday look like? So this is going to help you better understand the role and responsibilities, as well as what the company's like. You know, I've applied for jobs, and in one case I got the job where on day one I turned up and it was quite clear it wasn't what I thought it was at all. So this really helps you understand those sorts of things. Some typical interviewer questions to prepare for. So what are your strengths and weaknesses, and how did you address these? So we all have weaknesses. You know, the strength question should be easier to answer based on your experience and your achievements. The weaknesses, so you know, it's not good to say, well, I don't have any. We all do, as I just said. So prepare for this by thinking of something that's not going to make you look like a risky hire, something that it's clear you've realized and you've clearly addressed and improved on it. What are your ways of working? Perhaps you're creative, perhaps you're detailed planner, and so on. It's a personal thing. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Well, a tricky question, because you don't want to look as if you're not interested in this role. So be clear that you see yourself developing in the current role towards whatever it is. What do you think a colleague would say about you? So I mentioned LinkedIn recommendations and references. Use those here. You don't even have to think about it. This is what they've actually said in my LinkedIn recommendations. And what would you do if something doesn't go to plan? So this question takes lots of forms, lots of different versions. You know, it's Friday afternoon, the customer's phoned and the delivery's late, and they are not happy. So you need to be cool, calm, and able to plan your way out of whatever situation it is. So demonstrate that. And here is your $50,000 question. So it's really difficult to get feedback from job applications. In most cases, I would get something like, "Dear Mr. Cotton, thank you for applying. The quality of applicants was very high. Unfortunately, we won't be taking your application further in this case," and so on and so forth. I haven't learned anything from this, and probably you won't either. When you get to the interview, you can ask the "why me" question. So you've asked several other questions around the job. Any more questions? Yes, I'm very interested to know what was interesting about me as a candidate that got me to the interview. Now is your chance to make your pitch again. Focus on that, have a good discussion around that, but you're taking that away as feedback. The interviewer, the recruiter, has given you feedback without them even realizing it. So take that away, learn from it, and use that in your next application. It's what made you attractive in the first place from the recruitment perspective. We've got some resources here which I'll share with you. So the International Job Seekers Guide, whether you're inside or outside of Finland, is very useful. Fair Play at Work, and by the way, that guide is provided by International House Helsinki, but is general for Finnish job seeking. Fair Play at Work, info on Finnish working life, guide to finding a job in Finland, and then we've got a number of Finnish language learning resources if those are of interest. I'll just talk briefly about our talent advisor services here at International House Tampere. So what I'm promoting here is the services for persons either outside of the Tampere region or outside of Finland itself. So we have online career boost, guidance in 6 easy steps. So all of the content that I've mentioned here is covered one way or another on our career boost web. And I would emphasize the career planning using AI for career planning. So we have a number of questions, prompts that will help you plan your career direction using AI tools, generative AI, I should mention. So this is open to all inside or outside Finland. We also have an email service. So if you're interested in full-time or part-time work, email us at iht.talentadvisor@tampere.fi. Do tell us what you're interested in, and we'll do our best to support your job search. And at this point, I'm going to mention that there is support available, of course, in cities and regions across Finland: Helsinki, Jyväskylä, Turku, Oulu, Espoo, and, as I just mentioned, Tampere. And my colleague, Francesco, is going to copy paste those links into the chat for you guys. So this was our journey today. We looked at identifying skills. Key takeaway here is both technical, hard and soft skills are equally important. So it's good to make sure that your CV, your application letter covers those soft skills. We talked about creating your professional profile or CV. The key takeaway here is that there are 2 things that need to be very clear and stand out: your professional profile, a description of you professionally, and the skills list, so that the recruiter does not have to guess who you are professionally. Pitching to recruiters. So we talked about the importance of making that contact whenever it's available, and perhaps using the calling card to support that. And then creating an application letter, making clear your motivation and using the requirements of the job ad to define your achievements. And then some resources for you: searching channels, networking, so the importance of creating your professional network and making those contacts that are going to help you find those hidden job opportunities. And then we also covered some interview tips. So thank you for joining the session today. There's a materials download at the link here. And again, my colleague Francesco will paste that into the chat. So thanks from myself and Francesco for joining this session. He's sharing the link with you now. Our next International House Tampere presentation is at 11 o'clock, Internship and Thesis Opportunities in Finland by Victoria Laaksonen. I will now end this presentation and we'll be staying online to continue answering your questions in the chat, and enjoy the rest of today's Finland Talent Match. Thank you very much again.